Welcome to the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society. Welcome to ITSP Magazine. Thank you for joining us for this conversation.
Blue Lava is the first business platform for CISOs to manage their security program. Blue Lava guides security leaders to effectively measure, optimize, and communicate their security program with confidence and ease in one platform. Learn more at bluelava.net. HITRUST is a leading data protection standards development and certification organization that strives to safeguard sensitive information and manage information risk for global organizations across all industries and throughout the third-party supply chain. Learn more at hitrustalliance.net. CrowdSec, the collaborative and open source cybersecurity solution. Analyze behaviors, respond to attacks, and share signals across the community for free. Let's make the internet safer together. Learn more at crowdsec.net.
Black Cloak provides concierge cybersecurity protection to corporate executives and high net worth individuals to protect against hacking, reputational loss, financial loss, and the impact of a corporate data breach. Learn more at blackcloak.io.
Modern application development needs modern application security. With our award-winning application security testing solutions, Checkmarx enables developers to securely accelerate their work. Learn more at checkmarx.com. AppViewX is trusted by the world's leading global organizations to reduce risk, ensure compliance, and increase visibility through machine identity management and application infrastructure security and orchestration. Learn more at appviewx.com.
There we go.
There you go.
It gave me an error. It's the beauty of technology, Marco.
The beauty and the nightmares of it.
So listen, I know, so we are recording now, and I have this great idea, Marco.
What's that?
There's this new business model. It involves technology, actually.
Oh yeah? Okay.
It's very, very, very lucrative, so I hear. You just read on. You don't even have to get to the dark web to hear that the people in this space make tons of money.
Well, I just want to know one thing. Is it legal or not?
It's illegal until you get caught, I think.
It sounds like crime.
It might be crime. And
cybercrime?
It's connected to technology, so it is definitely cybercrime. And of course, I have plenty to do here, creating and producing and sharing stories with everybody in the form of podcasts. So I'm not going to go down that path, but there are plenty that have.
Oh yeah, I heard it's a good business if you want to take that kind of risk.
Because
I'm going to stick with podcast.
The risk of getting caught might not.
Let's talk about it.
Let's do that. And this is part of our RSA Conference coverage, and I'm excited to have this conversation. There's a session that piqued our interest, and we have speakers on talking about cybercrime and the ecosystem. So it's not just the people doing the crime, but there's a lot of supporting elements, I believe, and of course the combating elements too. And hopefully we'll get into all of that today with Michael, Daniel, and Tal Goldstein. Thanks, gentlemen, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. We're very happy to be here.
Great.
So here we are, Marco. Here we are. We have the people that know, and we're going to get into it. But I want to know who they are first. So I'm gonna pass the mic to Michael. Michael, a few words about your role, what you're up to, maybe a quick word on why this topic for you, and then we'll pass it over to Tal.
Sure. So as Sean said, I'm Michael Daniel, and I'm currently president and CEO of the Cyber Threat Alliance, which is a consortium of cybersecurity providers that work together to share threat intelligence in both an automated and an analytic fashion. I've been in cybersecurity now for quite a while, and prior to my time coming to the Cyber Threat Alliance, I was the special assistant to President Obama for cybersecurity, and so I was basically President Obama's cybersecurity advisor in the U.S. government. And really, cybercrime is become a huge issue. It's not just a niche sort of side issue to regular crime that most law enforcement deal with. It's become much bigger than that. And in fact, it's now posing a national security and a public health and safety threat along with the economic threat. And so we'll really go into more of that as we get into sort of why we're focusing on this effort that we're calling the Cybercrime Atlas.
A lot of good stuff there. Tal, same for you.
Yeah, so Tal Goldstein, I'm currently the head of strategy for the World Economic Forum Center for Cybersecurity, which is a part of the forum leading work on cybersecurity. And for those who don't know, the forum is an international organization for public-private collaboration, working for more than 50 years to bring leaders from private sector, public sector, civil society, academia, young leaders, entrepreneurs, all the different stakeholders, in order to address some of the most pressing issues of the hour. It's mostly known for its annual meeting in Davos, but actually working throughout the year in different initiatives to address those issues. And before joining the forum 4 years ago, I was part of the Israel National Cyber Directorate, dealing with strategy on cybersecurity, trying to see how to address cyber on a national level. So when I joined the forum, I was really looking for opportunities to do the same globally, to see what problems could be addressed at the global level, and doing that through public-private collaboration. And I think cybercrime is definitely one of those areas that deserve this type of approach. And actually, it's the only way that we can, in the long run, address this issue and threat.
Yeah, and I mean, we're talking about the World Economic Forum. So first thing that comes to mind, if you guys are talking about it there, it must be relevant. But joke apart, when we started with Sean, we talked about the ecosystem, like mapping this. And one thing that we know in the industry, and maybe people that are not in the industry may think like, just put the wall in the internet and block the bad guys outside. We all know that it cannot be done in that way, and it has to be addressed at a global level. So let's start from the beginning, and maybe Tal, you can take the lead on this. How did we get to where we got, and what is the actual present status of the problem?
I think when you look at cybercrime, there is nothing new. The method has changed, the scale has changed, but like in any other type of crime, when there is opportunity, you have criminals trying to take advantage of that. And on the positive side, as the digital economy is growing, and we have more and more opportunity as a society, there is also a negative side, and there are opportunities and profit to criminals. And the whole cyber ecosystem, cyber industry has been trying to address this for several decades. And unfortunately, it's a cat and mouse game, and criminals always find a way to go around security efforts. And unfortunately, as we look at the balance, we see cybercrime just growing, which is one of the reasons that led the forum, the World Economic Forum, and global leaders to put that on the table as the topic that deserve more attention and more focus, and mostly more collaboration. So what we need now, and this is what we are trying to promote through the Cybercrime Atlas, is a much more collaborative approach to address cybercrime.
Going to add on top of that is, I think it's also important to note that if your image of the cybercriminal or the hacker is a lone guy, wearing a hoodie, still living in his mother's basement, like that's not the cyber criminals that we're talking about. This is organized crime, right? It's highly organized. It's run like a business. It's treated like a business. The leaders have read their Adam Smith. They've attended their Harvard Business School online courses, and they run these things at a very diversified, in a very diversified way. And that's why we talk about an ecosystem, because it's really not just lone actors or even individual groups doing this on their own. There's an entire ecosystem behind this. And so that's really important for people to understand of why the scale has gotten so large.
Yeah, and it's to your point, Michael, I think, yeah, I mean, just think about any business and all the elements that a business has from, I don't know if they have HR teams or not, but they certainly have part-time workers, full-time workers. I know they offer support for some of the tools they sell and all this kind of stuff. Maybe we can get into some of that, but I first want to maybe take a step back and look at broader picture before we get into the actual ecosystem, is just the understanding. So Tal mentioned and Marco made a point that we're talking about this at the World Economic Forum level, which is fantastic. I know you described your work with President Obama. I'm just wondering, do leaders that, I'm not specifically talking about President Obama here, but do leaders in government understand the magnitude and the scale of this and how this stuff works?
So, that's actually one of the biggest changes I would say that we've seen over the last, decade or so, is that if you'd asked me that question back in, say, 2012, I would have said, no, probably not. But now, here in 2022, there are a lot more leaders that really understand the problems and the threat that is occurring through cyberspace. If you just look at just take the U.S. government, for example, you've actually had President Biden talk about ransomware and ransomware attacks multiple times, personally raise it with President Putin, for example. The U.S. government has assembled an impressive array of talent of people that really understand these issues in the government. And it's not just the U.S. government. You can see this in other governments as well. Everything from European governments like the UK and the Netherlands to Israel to Singapore. So all around the world, I would say that governments are definitely getting much more invested in. They understand the threat, and they are beginning to invest in ways to counter that threat. So from that standpoint, the level of government involvement is much higher.
So you were talking about HR. Sean and I were making a joke at the beginning about how lucrative that is. And I know that there is a marketing system out there for scaling operation and all of that. So Tal, is there some numbers to help our audience to understand when we talk about a business and an ecosystem, what that scale, what those numbers really are, and why everybody's involved and needs to be involved?
So that's actually it's an interesting question, and Michael must remember that when we met 3 years ago, last time we met in person in DC, this question was one of the reasons that led us to this effort. Because when you look at all the different publications and numbers out there, they are not really sufficient. We don't have a very clear picture of the cybercrime landscape. We don't even understand, for example, if you think about the sources of if you want to say what is the 80% of cybercrime, is it coming from 10 groups, 50 groups, 5,000 groups? We don't have the answers for those. And this is one of the reasons that we need a more centralized approach of bringing together information, analyzing it, not only for operational reason, which is of course still in the focus, but also to support decision makers. They decide on the resources and efforts that are being allocated to address this threat.
So Michael, maybe now's a good time to maybe start talking about some of the threat mapping you're doing, and I don't know what all the ecosystem mapping. I'm just wondering, so Tal says, is it 1 or 5 or 10 or 50 or 5,000? Do we have a sense of that there are a few groups, even if we can't put a final number on it? And do we have a sense of how many individuals are involved, even if they're not tied directly to an organized group? And I don't know, there's probably a gray area in between those two extremes, but what are you starting to see now?
Well, Tal's absolutely right. I mean, that's one of the big questions that we wanted to get at with this effort, is to actually begin to unpack that question. Because actually, Sean, the part of the reason I became really interested in this project, and what really spurred me, was I actually had a CEO of a big company ask me that very question. Michael, how many cyber criminals do you think there really are? Are there millions? And I was like, millions? No. But then I started thinking about the answer, and I realized I didn't really know the answer. As Tal was saying, is it 500 people that's doing all of this, 5,000, 50,000? We have a sense that one of the things that we know, there are a couple of things that we do know, though. One of them is that if you talk to most law enforcement personnel, right, any local law enforcement that patrols a beat, that walks a neighborhood, they will tell you that most of the crime in any given neighborhood is conducted by the same 4 or 5 people, right? It's a small group that actually carries out most of the crime. And the other thing is that we know that the internet allows you to scale, and allows you to scale up and really fast and very far. And so that leads you to think that the numbers may in fact be smaller than what they appear to be by the volume of cybercrime that's out there. And so one of the goals of this project is to begin to put some boundaries, some parameters on that question, and to start to get at that sense of, how many individuals are we really talking about here? Because when you start to put it in those individual terms, then you can really start mapping out a strategy for how to actually disrupt those groups and impose costs on them that make this entire business less feasible and less lucrative for them.
So maybe there is just one guy in the basement. We don't know.
Yeah, no, see, that's the thing, is you do get a sense that there's a lot of different people involved, right? Because now they've diversified, and so different people do different pieces of the process. So there are people who do the coding, who write the malware, who write the software, essentially, right? And they pass it off to other people in the ecosystem. There are some groups that specialize in just gaining access to companies and organizations, and that's all they do. And once they have gained that access, they sell that access to somebody else. And then somebody else in the ecosystem actually, sets up the exploitation of it, and then they pass it on to somebody else even to do the actual, exploitation and, do, for example, ransomware and collect the payments. And then there's the entire payment process system, which is complex in and of itself. So there's a lot of different moving pieces to the cyber criminal ecosystem. And again, that's one of the reasons why we want to do this mapping, this Atlas project, so that we start to get a sense of the scope and scale and extent of this ecosystem.
And it doesn't get more business than that. I mean, you're bringing up again Adam Smith and the specialization of the roles in the working chain. So that's incredible. Is everybody participating in this? I mean, are we looking at an involvement from the majority of the developed countries, or is it still in the infancy of those that collaborate?
I think, Marco, there is an interesting element when you say countries, but it's actually not only about countries. You asked before about government understanding, and I agree with Michael, especially in the last 2 years, we have more and more governments understanding the risk, understanding the need to invest. But it's also a question about the ability of governments, and in the case of cybercrime, of law enforcement. They can do much, but they cannot do everything. And this is a place that the private sector, that global businesses that are actually running cyber infrastructure and developing security efforts, that they have so much that they can contribute. And what we've learned in the last 2 years running the Forum Partnership Against Cybercrime initiative is that there is also very high motivation. So security companies like Fortinet and Checkpoint and Palo Alto and many others, platform providers like Microsoft, Google, the internet providers, financial companies, so big banks like Bank of America and Citi, they all have a very different perception and visibility on the cybercrime ecosystem. So the idea here is not just to bring the governments to work together, but also to bring the private sector to contribute and even to lead big parts of this effort.
Yeah, and I think definitely the involvement from public and private sector, and maybe even research and academia, certainly those coming together to paint this picture, and that's what I keep visualizing is a picture, some mapping. We're not trying to create art here, though, right? We're hoping to instill action or some response that either combats and takes away the threat or prepares us better for the threat if it continues. So, Michael, I'm wondering how our, I get maybe to both of you, and there's maybe two parts to the question here. I'm just wondering, what's our picture look like from the defense perspective? Are we as organized and orchestrated as the cyber criminals? And I'm wondering, does that, I don't know, how are we enabling some protection? I'm thinking also ecosystem and supply chain. Are we trying to take out the whole supply chain for cyber criminals, or are there weak points like they use against us in the defender world that we can poke against and break their supply chain like they do ours? So two questions there. I don't know who wants to take it first. Michael?
So, I mean, I think, Sean, the short answer is that we're not as organized as we should be on the defensive side. I mean, that's one of the reasons that the Cyber Threat Alliance, CTA, exists is, we want to enable the defenders, particularly those that are providing cybersecurity services to others, to be able to share that kind of information and share it much more rapidly. And to move it around in a way that will enable the defenders to do a better job. But you're absolutely right. I mean, part of my vision for this Atlas project is that it will provide insight into where are the choke points, is the supply chain for the bad guys, where do they have weak points? Is it that they are all using, or that 80% of the groups are all using the same couple of infrastructure providers to get server space? Are they using the same set of money mules to move the cryptocurrency around? Are they using the same places to get their source code? That will enable us to do much better targeting, and when I say us, I mean governments, to do much better targeting on and disruption of those. And for other defenders, are there specific things that would have greatest return on investment on the defense side? In other words, that we can see the types of vulnerabilities that the adversaries are exploiting, so that you prioritize fixing those and really emphasize fixing those first, that make the ransomware, for example, effective. So there are multiple ways to think about this, but it's all about actually starting to derive that actionable insight from the actually, frankly, vast mountains of data that are out there.
And if I may add one more element to that, and completely agree with everything Michael shared. Another challenge that we've discussed in the past is the need to build trust. So it's about creating those insights, but also creating groups that will have sufficient trust in order to share more sensitive information and even working together. And for that, what we need, the mapping is also serving to be able to identify mutual interest and motivation and capabilities to get deeper in the investigation and identifying disruption opportunity by different stakeholders. So in order to put around the table a small group of trusted partners that could be from private sector and public sector, there is a need for a process that will take place before that to be able to identify which stakeholder will be relevant and be able to contribute when it comes to working on investigation on specific criminal actor. And one of the reasons that we need to do this mapping is to help the stakeholders understand also their interest and motivation when they come to this effort, and build trust and action eventually of action-oriented groups that can work together.
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan, working there at a global level. So, Michael, you're actually going to be the moderator of this panel. That is the session that you're going to have at RSA Conference 2022. It's an important RSA conference because it's finally the comeback after the pandemic. So I know a lot of people are going to be there. How would you like to tease a little bit about what people can expect from this conversation that you're going to have there? Of course, don't tell us everything, but our job is going to be to tell everybody to come and pack that room.
Well, what you can look forward to is some of the discussion that you've heard on this podcast will also, highlight in those discussions, why we're doing this. But also what we want to talk about is some of the concrete examples that we have already obtained. We started a pilot version of this atlas last year to do basically a proof of concept, to prove to ourselves that it would actually work, that it would generate useful insights. And so we'll talk about what some of those insights are, and we'll talk about where we're going. And of course, we'll also talk about how you can get involved with this work if you would like to contribute.
Yeah, and maybe Tom, I'm going to put this question to you because you're joined on the panel by Amy Hogan Burney from Microsoft Digital Crimes Unit, and Derek Mankey, Chief of Security, Global Threat Alliances at Fortinet. So I'm wondering, is there anything you're hoping to, now obviously you have some insight here, what they're probably going to bring to the table, but is there something you hope to hear from them that folks will go, wow, I had no idea that's the case?
So it's a bit hard to imagine because we've been working so closely in the past 2 years. I can share with you, we started this initiative just in the early days of COVID. So we actually, with no opportunity to meet in person, which is, if I can share, the one thing I'm really looking forward to meet all of those people in person finally. But we have been working very closely, trying to understand specifically the role of the private sector and how companies like Microsoft and Fortinet can play a role in this fight against cybercrime. So what I really look in this discussion is understanding what would it take to get more companies involved, taking responsibility, putting resources to work together on an effort that no company can achieve by itself. It's not something that Microsoft, Fortinet, or any other of the big companies involved can achieve by themselves. So what would it take to bring them all together into this collaborative effort is, for me, what I'm really looking forward to our discussion before and during this session.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I like how you put that better than the way I asked the question, because I think you mentioned it earlier, Tal. I think it comes back to bringing enough people to the table with the level of trust that everybody can engage with each other, knowing that they're all working toward a common good. And you also mentioned the future. Let's talk about that as we wrap here. What do we see? Do we see a point where we actually can get ahead of the curve? I think Michael, was you, or I can't remember who said cat and mouse, but I don't know, that seems like a bad way to tackle this, a cat and mouse game. I think a little more strategy perhaps is needed. So what's the future like, and maybe how do we end up achieving that future that we want, perhaps?
I think in my view, it's important to realize that we are not going to solve the cybersecurity problem, whether you're talking about threats from cybercrime to or espionage, or the threat of disruption from nation state actors during conflict, right? Any more than we have solved those problems in the physical world. So but what we can do is we can make our ecosystem more resilient to disruption. We can make it safer. We can make it so that cybercrime is not the kind of problem that it does not pose, the level of economic or safety or national security threat that it does now. And so basically what we're really talking about is, can we drive these threats down to a manageable level that we can sustain over the long term? And I think that we actually can, we can build the infrastructure and the cooperation to do that. It's going to take a while, and it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Yes, I would just say that it's really about, Michael said, resilience. It's about how are we reacting to the threat, but it's a community resilience. Is how are we doing that as a community? And that's the only way that we'll be able to significantly improve the situation and the balance between cyber criminals and defenders, is by working together as a community and being much better in the way that we are reacting to cybercrime.
I'm just wondering. I know I always have the one more question. That Marco says stop. I'm just wondering, do we have anything from our history that says we can pull this off? I'm just thinking the war on drugs. Is there something from that we can pull from, or is there another scenario that says if we can just follow what we've done in the past, we'll be better off than we are now?
There's actually an interesting historical parallel to international high seas piracy from the 16th and 17th centuries, which actually began to pose a significant threat to overall European commerce. And the European nations actually banded together in a way to figure out how to reduce piracy to a much, much reduced level. And so by the time the 19th century rolls around, piracy on the high seas was not nearly the problem that it had been previously. And I think that you have those kinds of examples. Another example I would give is, the threat of bank robberies here in the United States. That at the beginning of the 20th century, it had become quite the plague across a lot of the financial system. And eventually the United States figured out ways to reduce that threat. And if you look at it, it wasn't just there were technological pieces to it, right? We started inventing things like time lock safes and alarm systems. But the other piece was organizational. We created a new law enforcement agency that could work across jurisdictional boundaries. We created information sharing processes to share information about crime. And we passed laws and changed policies. So, there are examples that we have where we have tackled these kinds of problems. But you'll notice, of course, that it's not that piracy doesn't exist anywhere. It still exists. It's not that bank robberies still don't happen. It's that they don't pose an existential threat to the systems, and that they are held at levels that are manageable, and that there are efforts underway to reduce their impact, and nations react if there's an upsurge in them, and law enforcement reacts if there's an upsurge in those activities. And so that's really what we're talking about doing for cybercrime as well.
Well, first of all, thank you for bringing the pirates, because I'm really excited about that all the time.
You got
Sean knows
Marco
that.
excited, yeah.
You got my attention again. No, seriously, it sounds to me that both the problem you're bringing in and all the conversation you've done, the fact that this is happening at the World Economic Forum, there is that threat intelligence sharing that many times, Sean, we've been talking more and more. I mean, lately, many of our conversation has been exactly this: how the bad guys share, the bad guys are organized, and the good guys sometimes they just don't want to share. They want to keep that for themselves, but there is not any good for the community when they do that. So I feel like
it's beyond the info.
Changed. Yeah,
it's the alliance that's important as well. So
yeah,
nice one. Well, I didn't mean to cut you off, Marco, but I think
no, I was done.
Yeah,
I'm thinking pirates now. So
you're off in pirate land.
Mhm.
Good pirates, of course.
Yeah.
Having fun on the boat. No, but this is a serious topic. I suspect that the full panel will be full of stuff to take away. Now, I think maybe just one final thought from Michael here as we wrap, because I'll do my part first, and to say, listening to this, and we'll put links in the show notes for this panel session at RSA Conference. But Michael, maybe just a final thought from you as we close here for the business leaders and security practitioners that will be at the conference. What do you want them to take away from this? Because ultimately it's about bringing it down to the strategy and the operations within the organizations. Maybe there are government folks there as well, but what's the final takeaway for folks attending your session?
So I think the final takeaway that I would lay out is that it is a difficult challenge, right? But we can actually do something about this problem. We are not helpless in the face of it. And it is going to require some different ways of thinking, some innovation. And that's the Cybercrime Atlas project is one way that we are trying to enable ourselves to tackle this problem more effectively. And that I don't think you have to have a fatalistic attitude about it, and that we have to embrace and try these kinds of opportunities. And that's really what people should see the Cybercrime Atlas is. It's an opportunity to try something new and to try to make a difference. And if we put efforts into it, I really think that it will.
I love it. And the session is Thursday, June 9th, 2:10 to 3 Pacific. For those that will be on site, it is keynote on that day. And I think it's going to be a great conversation, and I'm thrilled we had this one today with you, Michael and Tal. Thanks so much for giving us your insights and teasing your session a bit.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thank you. It was great to be here.
Marco, are you done with the Pirates?
Still dreaming that life. This is exciting. I'm actually, like I said before, there's going to be a great year to all be back at RSA Conference San Francisco. So I hope to see a lot of familiar faces, even if we wear probably a mask or be safe, but finally to be there together as a community again, that'd be great.
And then at the World Economic Forum.
Thanks.
All right, thanks everybody for listening. Keep tuned and stay tuned to all of our coverage from RSA Conference this year. Have a good one.
AppViewX is trusted by the world's leading global organizations to reduce risk, ensure compliance, and increase visibility through machine identity management and application infrastructure security and orchestration. Learn more at appviewx.com. Modern application development needs modern application security. With our award-winning application security testing solutions, Checkmarx enables developers to securely accelerate their work. Learn more at checkmarx.com.
Black Cloak provides concierge cybersecurity protection to corporate executives and high net worth individuals to protect against hacking, reputational loss, financial loss, and the impacts of a corporate data breach. Learn more at blackcloak.io.
CrowdSec, the collaborative and open source cybersecurity solution. Analyze behaviors, respond to attacks, and share signals across the community for free. Let's make the internet safer together. Learn more at crowdsec.net. HITRUST is a leading data protection standards development and certification organization that strives to safeguard sensitive information and manage information risk for global organizations across all industries and throughout the third-party supply chain. Learn more at hitrustalliance.net.
Blue Lava is the first business platform for CISOs to manage their security program. Blue Lava guides security leaders to effectively measure, optimize, and communicate their security program with confidence and ease in one platform. Learn more at bluelava.net.
If you enjoyed this podcast, share ITSP Magazine with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you represent a company and wish to associate your brand with our conversations, sponsor one or more of our columns. Thank you for listening.